So today we're in Pembroke, New Hampshire. It's a small town founded in 1759, home to just about 7,200 people. And what you're looking at is the Langmaid house. It's just one of many old farmhouses in the area. It's changed hands numerous times over the years since the Langmaids lived here. But the original building obviously is still here, and it's still a functioning farm, much like it was back in 1875, back when Josie Langmaid lived here. So Josie is actually the subject of this video. And her story is one that this town probably will never forget. So October 4th, 1875 should have just been another typical Monday for 17-year-old Josie Langmaid as she left for Pembroke Academy. But it wasn't. Something awful happened to her on the way to school that day, and it's something that this town never wanted to be forgotten. Something that still evokes strong emotions almost 150 years later. Now, we have to warn you, this story is not for the faint of heart. There's some disturbing and graphic details contained here, so just be warned.
So, Josie attended Pembroke Academy, right here in Pembroke. It's been renovated over the years, but it still does function as a active high school for Pembroke and all the surrounding areas.
So, normally Josie would walk to school with her brother, Waldo, or her friend, but on this particular morning of October 4th, she was running late. So Waldo went ahead, probably about a half an hour early. Her friend ended up getting a carriage ride from a neighbor when Josie never showed up at their designated meeting spot in the woods. So nobody really thought anything of it. Waldo figured that Josie just stayed home sick. That's why she wasn't at school. So it wasn't until Waldo came home that night and informed his parents that Josie never made it to school. And what they didn't know, obviously, at that point was that she was already dead, mutilated, left in the swamp. All right, so here we are at the monument that the citizens of Pembroke erected to honor Josie. So I'm just going to walk you around it and show you what's on it. So here it says erected by the citizens of Pembroke and vicinity to commemorate the place of the tragic death in memory of Josie A. Langmaid, a student of Pembroke Academy who was murdered on her way to school on the 4th day of October 1875, age 17 years, 10 months, 27 days. But what's really kind of eerie about this is when you take a look on the side, right here, it's very straightforward. Body found 90 feet north at Stone Hub. Head found 82 rods north at Stone Hub. So we're gonna walk you out to where you can see the Stone Hub where the body is, or was found. So it's a quick walk, actually. So this is the Stone Hub right here. When Waldo, Josie's brother, came home that day on October 4th and informed the parents that Josie never made it to school, they were immediately worried because they knew that she had left for school. So they basically put together a search party of about 100 people, started combing the woods and the road in between the Langmaid house and the school. And it was about 9 o'clock that night when one of the men actually made it to the spot that we're standing in right now. And this is the spot where Josie's body was found. So the body actually, like we said, right here where this Stone Hub is now, was found naked, mutilated. There was some pieces of clothing that were left on top of her body as if, the killer tried to cover his tracks or maybe give her a proper burial, I guess. I don't know. But one of the big things that the men noticed when they found the body was the struggle that apparently had taken place here. A lot of the plants were kind of disturbed in the area. It was pretty clear that Josie put up a fight, put up a struggle. And when they found her body, one of the most shocking things, I guess, was that her head was missing.
So we try to make it over to the stone where the head apparently was found. However, that area is definitely overgrown, so it at this point seems to be inaccessible. But if everybody wants to comment about us actually trying to dive in there and find it, feel free to leave some comments on the video.
So right now we're walking down the street in downtown Suncook, which is actually where some mills were located, where a lot of individuals worked during the time of Josie's murder. And a number of suspects were rounded up and questioned. Some were just the usual creepy tramps and vagabonds and drifters and stuff in the area. They even arrested Suncook's only black resident, Charles Moore, just for being black. But all these suspects were eventually dismissed because they all had solid alibis, right? Their lead suspect for a while was William Drew. Now, William Drew lived in a shack in the woods, very close to the Langmaid farm, and he was basically known just to be a creepy dude, saying, inappropriate things to girls. Josie's teacher, Miss Bell Lake, told police that on one occasion, Drew actually told Josie that he will murder you and cut you into inch pieces after she threatened to tell her father about Drew insulting her one day on the street. So he was arrested, and they actually had to send him up to the Concord jail for his own safety because the people in Pembroke were ready to lynch him. Turns out, though, that this testimony from Miss Lake turned out to be false, and Drew was no longer a suspect, so the investigators were stumped. So a break finally came in the form of a wire from officials in Vermont. They saw some similarities between the murder of Josie and the murder of a school teacher there in St. Albans, Marietta Ball. So Ball was raped and murdered, and they were pretty certain that a man named Joseph LePage was the culprit. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough evidence to bring him to trial, and they were almost certain that he had moved to Suncook. Turns out they were right. He was living right next to the police station here in downtown Suncook. So they arrested him. They found a bloody coat in his house. They also found a boot that matched the cast that they made from Josie's face. He was indicted on October 28th for the rape, mutilation, and murder of Josie Langmaid. He finally confessed to both murders the day before his execution. He even drew a map for police, which led them to a missing earring and a ring that belonged to Josie. He took them from her the day that he murdered her. He was finally put to death by hanging on March 15th, 1878.
So right now we're at the Buck Street Cemetery here in Pembroke, which is actually where Josie was finally put to rest, along with, you'll see, the rest of her family. And I apologize real quick because this cemetery is literally like right on the side of the road and it's pretty busy. So let me take you around here and show you. So you got the father, James, is here. Next to him is the mother. And then over here is where Josie's buried, alongside her brother, Waldo.
After Josie's death, Waldo started to lose it a little bit, blaming himself for not being with her that morning. Eventually, he did come down with typhoid fever, and he did pass away in December, just a few months after Josie.
So after Waldo died, I guess James had enough of living here in New Hampshire, so he picked up his stuff and took off and settled down in Minnesota, where he lived out the rest of his life. He finally died in 1902, but then was brought back here and buried alongside his family. Thanks for joining us here on another episode of Exit the Norm. Make sure you like us, subscribe to us, give us a comment. Let us know if there's any other places that you think we should check out. We're always looking for some suggestions. You can find links all down in the description for our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those different places, all over the interwebs. Hopefully you learned something.